Hey everyone, this is Sandeep Aujla, CFO at Intuit, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1099.
And getting that right and investing in that team and making them part of the upstream, bringing them upstream, making them part of the decisions early in the game can really be a game changer. And having that team feel empowered and part of the value proposition means that you have a team that is prepared, is well invested, well remunerated, and that can make or break deals, particularly for high growth venture and private equity backed companies. If you have a private equity that comes in and your books are not in order and your team, isn't incentivized or bothered about preparing that and making that deal work, that can be an actual deal killer.
When a restaurant's weekly salmon order suddenly spikes in price, Emma Whelan wants chefs adjusting menus the next morning, not tallying losses a month later. The system will alert them if the price of salmon has gone up unexpectedly, she tells us, describing MarginEdge's real-time cost engine. It's a small but telling vignette from Whelan's first months as CFO, and it captures the company's wider ambition. MarginEdge wants to create a world where restaurant operators can focus on great food and great service without having to worry about the back office, she explains. You'll hear that and much more on today's episode. Our talk with Emma Whelan begins after this.
When it comes to company spend, most finance teams are on defense, reacting to surprise spend, chasing receipts, saying no. But there's a better way. Meet Brex, the AI-powered spend platform that boosts a company's control, earnings, and speed. 99% of customer spend is compliant. 11 million hours saved on expenses and accounting through automation. $681 million plus dollars back to customers in business building rewards. Make every dollar count with Brex.
Hello, Emma Whelan is with us. She's CFO of MarginEdge, where she's been busy drawing on Big Four audit experience and a decade in restaurant finance to implement real-time cost analytics and strengthen operational decision-making. Emma, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. I'm delighted to be here.
So, Emma, please look back for us. We always begin by begging our guests to look back and try to identify some of those experiences from their past they feel best prepared them to become a CFO. What comes to mind for you?
So my story was not a typical CFO story. My undergrad was in German and Spanish and Philippine, which brought me to KPMG Madrid as a financial translator. And I quickly realized that while I didn't enjoy the art of translating, I really enjoyed the content that I was translating, and really got sucked into that world, the excitement of transactions, the stewardship of audit and what that meant to investors, and was very lucky to get the support from a partner within KPMG Madrid who said, "Hey, you want to do this? Go do an MBA and join our audit practice and get that experience and you can do this." So I did and joined audit with the hope to move into their transactions group down the road, but ended up moving to the US with the firm in 2007. And after 2008, was very glad to be in audit and not transactions when everything was crumbling and there were no transactions happening in the world. So stuck with audit. When I look at how that was transformational for me, I really carried that for a long time, thinking, I started late in my career. I wasted 5 years, 6 years translating when I could have been auditing or doing something else in the finance world. And I think with some distance and some time to analyze that actually made me a much stronger leader because I had outside experience that wasn't the typical track. I knew how it was to be a little different. and what diversity that brought to my thought process in my day to day, and in how I treated people and how I thought about problems. So what I thought for a long time was a weight around my ankle, I think actually really helped me in my career. So I've come to very much value that time, and it also made me very, very aware of how someone taking an interest in giving somebody an opportunity can really, really be a launch pad for somebody. So that is my start. And then how I
can I ask it something about that, because it is such an interesting. It's a little serendipitous. I mean, it's you were someone who specialized in languages. You excelled in languages, and that, of course, allowed you to go to Madrid. And as you looked around for opportunities to use your language skills, you get hired by KPMG, and you get into the numbers environment, let's say. Perhaps you always were good with numbers, or were you? I mean, did you think I was just doing this to pay the bills or find my next language opportunity, or what were you thinking back then?
I think that for me, I wasn't always good at numbers. I was no maths champion at school by any means. It's more, I think, the ability to make things happen. I saw the transactions team and the excitement around a deal and the late nights and the common purpose, and then the celebration when it was finished and success had been achieved. And that really inspired me. I wanted to be part of something. I wanted to make things happen, drive change, provide a product that helped customers. And that was what was really exciting. And I was, to a certain extent, doing my time in audit in order to get into transactions. That's how I started off. But then I actually really liked it. I liked the surety of it, and understanding how different companies work, and how that, how different teams worked, and seeing how an organized team could make very light work of something that a disorganized team just took forever to do, which also I think shaped how I think about, on the other side of the fence in Fiverr. I think that has shaped me significantly on how I approach work and how I encourage the teams that I work with to approach that work and those projects.
There was clearly an opportunity that opened up for you in the United States. I mean, could it have easily, because you seem like something of an adventurer, could it have easily have been Asia? I mean, could it have been Australia?
It could, and it was, with my husband, it was driven by his locations. He's a journalist and needed to be in a big city. So, he was made correspondent in DC, and I asked KPMG to transfer me, and they did. But it could have been Sydney. It could have been, Singapore, and I would quite happily have tagged along and figured things out there. But to that point, I did have a happy-go-lucky attitude to that and thought, it's KPMG. How different can it be? Everyone speaks English. It's going to be easier than in Spain because it's my language. I'm originally from Ireland. And that was really hard. It was really hard. And I really underestimated how hard that would be. And then thought it was me failing rather than it just being hard and it taking a lot of work to get settled into a new country, figure out how new coworkers in a different culture work, and how new clients and the working culture, how things get done, the communication, the whole thing
was the mindset different? Was it just what was different really? What made it, where did you have to grow perhaps?
I think in resilience, I mean, for one example was my first day on the job. I was in my cube working, and it came to 1 o'clock. It came to 2 o'clock. I'm like, surely someone's going to come find me for lunch. And by 3 o'clock, I was like, I think I'm on my own. I gotta find somewhere to eat. Like I am starving. And I thought, I just got really unlucky with the people I was working with. But no, it's just a very different culture. It's, nobody's intentionally leaving you to figure it out by yourself. But there isn't that same, I think, thought structure about, someone's new. I think that's changed. This is also 18 years ago.
Yeah,
so
sure.
There's a little bit more, EQ on stuff like that, I think.
Tell us something about your decision to move into industry. And was it time? How did you look at it?
So I always knew I didn't want to be a partner in one of the big firms. It wasn't the kind of lifestyle that I was chasing. And I like to do rather than the administrative and the administrative burden and the responsibility that audit partner carry is really significant, and that wasn't exciting to me. So I knew it was just a matter of time. And how I thought about it was, the longer I stay, the harder it is to make the jump, because I won't know how to do anything. So I know how a P&L should look. I know how a journal entry should look, but I have no idea how to put it into a system. So what use am I to anybody? I either need to wait to get partner and then jump to a CFO role, or need to jump now so that I can learn still how to do all of those things and actually be able to be an operator in industry.
Was it a headhunter, or how did you move into industry?
It was, I was between two very large engagements, and I had about a week without client assigned time. And sitting at my desk in KPMG, and I rarely answered the phone, was rarely at my desk, rarely answered the phone. And it just so happened I picked up the phone, and it was a headhunter calling about an assistant controller role at WeddingWire. And I don't know, I was like, oh yeah, I'll chat. And talked to the controller, over the phone. We liked each other. We decided to meet in person, and my mind was blown when I went to the offices. I'd never been to a tech startup. It was more, conventional, traditional industries that I'd worked in. And the fact that there were sofas and a Zen room and treadmill desks, my goodness, this is crazy. And just the growth story and the energy in the office and the people that I would be working with, and the CFO and the founding team, the whole exec team at WeddingWire, it was a great opportunity. And, I took a week to decide. Till the very last moment. I went back and forth. It's very scary to move from a very large company, and the only one that I had ever worked with and that had been very, very good to me, to go to a small startup with, people in just over 100 people, and just in one country. It was terrifying, but made the jump. And
I want to make an observation about part of your bio anyway. At KPMG, of course, you were there roughly 6 years. WeddingWire, and you might share, this is an interesting space. I'll share that. You were at WeddingWire 8 years, and then an additional 6 years. So the wedding realm is something special to your career, I imagine. And I'm assuming those are two different companies, not knowing the entity. Was there an M&A deal there, or?
There was.
It was.
So we had done multiple acquisitions. When I like to say, when I joined, we were one country, one currency, several products. And when I left 7 weeks ago, there was 16 countries, 12 currencies, and just over 2,000 employees.
Wow.
So crazy growth. But the XO deal, it started with with a deal with Permira, the UK private equity firm. They acquired a majority holding in WeddingWire in May 2018, with the thesis that WeddingWire and XO, which was publicly traded at the time, could do great things together as a single entity. So based on that thesis, we raised just over 600 million of public debt in the fall of 2018 and acquired XO and took them private. So the two companies merged under the guidance of Permira. And any of the accountants listening, the deal was closed on December 21st, which meant that we had to audit the entity and do all of our purchase accounting. in compliance with all of those covenants. So super quick in Q1 of 2019, and 2 tax years for filing purposes. So it was a lot. But the main thing, so obviously the deal made a ton of sense from industrial logic and synergies, but the main lift on a deal like that is really the melding of cultures and the melding of people and making sure that everybody can work well together. And that's where, I not to toot our own horn, but I think we did a really good job on that in this deal. And I think it's where a lot of deals can fall down, and you don't always think about that change management and how important it is. How people feel when they come to work drives how they will do their jobs, and how they do their jobs drives the success not only of the deal, but of the company in general. So just keeping that human capital front and foremost is key.
Was it that deal, or was it perhaps another project that you feel sort of accelerated your growth and allowed you to advance into a CFO role? Where did you really demonstrate that you were headed to the C-suite, I guess?
Well, I think that deal was probably the catalyst for my eye-opening that is what I wanted. But I think that journey, each brick in the wall kind of built up to that. And then the people I was working with, I've been super lucky with bosses, mentors, colleagues my entire career, and I'll be eternally grateful for that. I've had the pleasure of working with 3 wonderful CFOs in the WeddingWire and People WWXO environment. And after the Premier deal, the XO deal, I started to talk to the CFO at the time and talk about my ambitions on, really wanting to set the path towards that CFO role. How do I get there? What am I lacking? If you were a CEO and you were looking at me for a CFO role, what would your concerns be? Because those are the concerns I need to address so that I'm ready when the time comes. And he was phenomenal about it. He was transparent. He was supportive. He really put me in situations so I could learn. And then one of my colleagues stepped into that role of CFO and really finished that support network for me and really put me into situations where I was, instrumental in debt raises and getting exposure, being in the room for those.
I was going to ask were you involved in speaking to investors and debt raisers and
being in debt calls and just addressing those those nerves before you go on those calls, and knowing that what you say and how you say it really matters for the company. I think it not being it shouldn't be your first time when you're doing that by yourself without a support network.
Did you feel at any point in time, maybe, and you just revealed to us that you built relationships with these CFOs and said, hey, help me get there. And, there you found they were very willing to help you. Was there ever a time you felt you were at risk of being sort of sidelined or, thought of, and frankly, it's a common thing, as an accountant and not someone who, is strategic? Yeah.
Yes. And I think that is an imposter syndrome issue for every accountant who wants to be a CFO.
Right.
And it is something that's mentioned, and we talked about that a lot. Like, how do I get around that? How do I address it? How do I speak to that in interviews to convince a board member that I can do the CFO job, that I am not going to be gap oriented, get the audit done and forget about everything else. And I think the fact that I was open to acknowledging that was an issue, and that the CFOs I worked with also acknowledged that it was an issue, and getting that FP&A. I've had wonderful FP&A colleagues who have shared their insights with me. The CFO at TKWW had strategy, FP&A, and accounting meet 3 times a week. We would talk about what we were working on, get input from each other, and that shared knowledge and shared strategy, I think, really gave me that, an eye on the ball, that I could speak to things and have insight into things that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think it's also one of my big fears, and I think anyone who's talking to a CFO about this will have heard it, is I don't know how to do a budget. I don't know how to do FP&A. Do I need to move into an FP&A role in order to become a CFO? And the answer is no. You need really good FP&A people, just as somebody coming from the finance side needs really good accounting people. We can't be experts in everything. So we need to know enough to be dangerous. We need to know how to look at a budget, and how to look at a model, and ask the right questions, but we don't necessarily need to be able to sit in front of the Excel and put it together. Also, that's not a good use of a CFO's time.
No.
You
do need to tell the story, and I'd be curious, was there a time where you were tapped on the shoulder by one of those CFOs and said, okay, I'd like you to present this tomorrow, or talk about, or brief the board, or whatever it may have been, upper management? Were there instances like that where suddenly, you were lifted out of your comfort zone, very much so, because you'd raise your hand, and now you were being asked some tough questions and asked to present?
Yeah, I used to ask myself that multiple times a month. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I I'm so comfortable. Why am I pushing myself out of this comfort zone all the time? And there were times that I had to raise my hand and say, I can't do this, and I don't want to put you as my boss in a situation where you will fail, or you'll be up till 3 a.m. fixing, whatever chopped liver I've put out to you.
Right.
And that's, I think you need to be very sure of your relationship with your boss, and there has to be a lot of trust, and you have to be okay being vulnerable. But my thought on that was, he's going to see that it's rubbish anyway, so I might as well just tell him that I'm not in a space where I can produce this confidently, and make sure that the next time it comes up, that I'm able to do it. And the feedback I got from that was, thank you. Don't make a habit of it, but I appreciate you being honest enough and self-aware enough to know that you weren't going to do a good job on this, and it was important and time sensitive. So you raised your hand and got help.
You advanced to MarginEdge into the CFO role from the Knot, where you were a senior vice president and chief accounting officer. And we might have a few more career-related questions for you, but we always like to know, was that a headhunter, or was that part of your network, or what would you characterize it as?
It was a mix of everything. So I had just started, and I'd always been very open, obviously, as I think, hopefully been transmitted through the conversations with bosses and colleagues about my ambition to rise to the CFO role. So it was getting to that stage where it's like, I think I'm ready. I think I'm, comfortable to start talking to people. And was talking to one of our other investors who, is very focused on tech, and, is talking to them about potentially, if a Portco opportunity arises, I really like how you operate. I would like to work with you. And just reached out to a headhunter at the same time, saying we'd been reaching out for a long time. And said, yeah, when I'm ready, I'll let you know. And literally the next day he called me and said, I have a job in the DC area that I think you might be interested in. And I think you know people there. So it ended up, it was, the COO here. We worked together at, WeddingWire for a long time, and, got on very well. So there was that. And then the CEO had a former company that was acquired by a company where one of my CFOs had been CFO. So there was a very nice connection, of coincidences, I guess, and network. So network, headhunter.
Well, that's great. Thank you for revealing that to us, and we will perhaps, as I said, have a few more career-related questions for you a little later. Well, tell us about MarginEdge and this opportunity the company's pursuing today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so at its core, MarginEdge wants to create a world where restaurant operators can focus on great food and great service without having to worry about the back office and the administrative lift that comes with running a business. That is our core objective, and that is the points that we are trying to address for our customers. So what we do is we automate the key back office tasks like invoice processing, inventory, and recipe costing. And we provide real-time insights into the costs and performance of the restaurant. So the restaurant owner can really focus on the hospitality and not on paperwork. That is what we do. So, the average restaurant owner could spend, if it wasn't for our tool saves them hours of the invoices by hand, updating spreadsheets, trying to figure out where the money's going. MarginEdge does all of that for our customers automatically. We pull the data straight from the purchase, from the point of sale and from their purchases. So all of their invoices, they can scan their invoices in. We show them their food costs in real time, not at the end of the month. And that helps them make better and faster decisions. So they can adjust a menu price, or they can pivot to adjust to address food waste, again, in real time without waiting for those end of month reports. So if we're looking for an example, if a restaurant usually orders salmon every week, when they use MarginEdge, the system will alert them if the price of salmon has gone up unexpectedly. That means that they can switch vendors, they can tweak the menu, they can adjust portion sizes, before it starts to really impact their margins. So if that happens on the 2nd of the month, they're reacting on the 3rd. They're not reacting on the 5th of the following month when they see their numbers being hit. And because of we scan all of our customers can scan all of their invoices, and those are processed automatically. So they don't need to spend those hours, inputting the invoices for the accountant. We're really that connective tissue between, the point of sale and the invoicing, the purchases, and the restaurant's accounting system. So we do all the stuff that restaurant people very few people typically like to do.
Yeah.
It allows them to work on what inspired them to start a restaurant.
So I saw that the company's raised roughly about $83 million. I'm wondering if you can just give us a little history behind its capital structure. It's private. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we are a venture growth backed company, started in a very infant state 10 years ago, but really the growth story has been the last 5 or 6. And it was founded by restaurant owners who were addressing pain points that they themselves were working through. And obviously started with seed investment from angel investors and friends and family, and then grew to now with our latest round, we brought on 10 Coves Capital. So our main investors are Osage and Spooner Capital and 10 Cove.
And did I forget if you mentioned, is it 10,000 restaurant locations you're currently on the platform? And I know you just arrived there, but just from help us understand a little better of prioritizing where that capital is spent. If we were to look at R&D, go to market, or talent, where are you investing?
In all three, but I think the main focus is really in R&D to get the platform to a place where it is meeting all the needs of our customers and really staying at the cutting edge of the tech developments so that the pain points can be addressed. Obviously, we need to have we do have an amazingly talented team. The atmosphere is amazing, and our employee satisfaction scores are sky high. We've won Glassdoor Best Place to Work awards, and you can tell people are happy when you walk into the office. There's energy. There's a really good vibe here that I think is transmitted to our customers. So people are happy with what they do with a good product. You're selling a good product and supporting a good product. It feels like you're doing good.
When you were mentioning the salmon pricing and what have you, I think you were trying to reveal what might be where you believe the competitive edge for this application is. And we've had a few restaurant software companies on in the past. We've been doing this a while. They come every few years, I suppose. But I think this is somewhat of a competitive space. So I'm wondering what really sets MarginEdge apart. And maybe you were revealing that in part to us. I don't know.
So, I mean, it's a great question, and it is a competitive space, but where we really differentiate ourselves is that MarginEdge is the most comprehensive platform. So we address the gamut of problems, and our intention is to be that one-stop shop for back office. So not only are we doing inventory, we're also doing payments. We're helping restaurants move from, a really reactive stance, using the example of the salmon earlier, to being able to be proactive, and we offer them all the right tools to do that.
Tell us something about the back office of restaurants. And I imagine, you put forth the value prop that we can really save you time here. And if you think it's, 20% of your time is spent there, we'd like to bring that down further for you. How am I doing? Is this the part of what you are advancing?
So that is definitely, it's the time, but it's also, margins are really razor thin in the hospitality industry. So, addressing, going back to the salmon, addressing inventory price changes quickly and pivoting can really be the difference of, being in the black or being in the red that month. And the data, knowing that, how much staff, like when you're sales, when you have to, weight your inventory, how much waste you've got, pruning all of that to a point where you're really fine tuning it can really, really make the difference.
Yeah. Speaking of tight margins, the economy is quite uncertain going forward here. Have those headwinds, and I mean, they hit the restaurant business frequently first. Are you evolving now how MarginEdge, its pricing or its, how it serves customers, to support through tighter cash, situations that might come up?
I think our tool is ever more important in a tighter environment because the insight we give and the ability for restaurateurs to pivot based on the data and real-time data, not waiting that month. I think that is the key. The better informed operator will make better decisions in a tight environment, in that tight environment, ever more important. So I think the platform that we provide really does allow restaurateurs to make the smart decisions quickly.
What about your team? And again, you're just arriving, so I don't think you're going to reorganize, but do you need to make some key hires, or should we expect to see that happen in the next 12 months?
Probably is the best answer I can provide right now. There was a controller hired on the accounting side right before I joined. He was fantastic. The team overall, when you join a smaller company that has been growing really fast, you expect things to be messy. Things are getting nicely buttoned up. People work really hard, and what I'd like them to do is work a little less hard. And obviously what got us to here is not the same framework that will get us to the next level of growth. So we need to make sure, to put it crudely, we need to make sure our plumbing is in our foundation and our plumbing is all set so that we can have scalable growth. So right now I'm in the curiosity phase. I'm listening, I'm figuring out processes, trying to understand where the team's pain points are and across the organization with process flows. So I think there's, data and process work, and then hopefully that leads to efficiencies for the team and reduces the amount of overtime required. But if not, we will certainly invest in additional talent so that people can have evenings and weekends and have a reasonable workload.
Would headcount roughly 150? Is that a fair number?
We're actually 220 in the U.S.
Oh, there you go.
Between the U.S. and Canada. We have some employees in Canada.
And what about, we want to touch on AI with you and sort of the mindset there. Is AI going to be a game changer for MarginEdge? Is there areas that you can see it really saving time or cost?
It's certainly the the topic du jour. Everybody's talking about it. And yes, for us, it's key. For our invoice processing, we already leverage a lot of automation, a lot of learning models, and that is only set to continue. And that is on our invoice processing. When customers are scanning in invoices on their phones, we're using processes to glean that information and categorize it. Across the organization, I think we're working on where we can leverage it smartly. I just yesterday left one of our investors, Tenco's, their AGM, and there was a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and how some of the other portfolio companies are leveraging it. And there is talk, along the lines of the Shopify mandate to prove that you can't do the work with AI before you get a new headcount. There is a lot of talk of moves towards that, and MarginEdge is not there yet. We are interested. We're moving towards it, trying to leverage it. I personally am a huge fan of ChatGPT. I ask it lots of questions every day, and it provides enough guidance to get good enough. It's good enough. It's not perfect, but that oftentimes is all you need.
We've read that, some of the restaurant tabloids have sort of zeroed in on menu engineering suggestions. Just to your point about the notion that software could help restaurants determine, here are some enhancements you can make this week on your menu to boost your margins this week. Is this the future for your software, do you think, or is this is the possibility that MarginEdge can help here?
So I think MarginEdge leveraging AI can help our customers. Whether AI can create recipes for our customers, that I don't know. I personally have tried an AI generated, a ChatGPT generated in recipe at home, and it's probably one of the worst things that we ever ate. So, there's a lot of refinement needed there, but still always going to have that personal touch. You're going to have chefs who may leverage it to get ideas, but then they'll tweak it and work with it. Similar to an accountant using it to get, regulation guidance, they'll take it and then form it in the way that they need it, but not necessarily rely wholly on it.
The nature of this business, are you likely to be impacted by the tariffs?
Not directly, but I think at a macro level, we could potentially see some impacts, but not directly.
Again, is just circling back to AI then, would you, your finance team, are you encouraging them to experiment? Have there been conversations already? And I know you're again, a newbie, but what would you tell us?
So just at the very basic level, yes, is my, overarching response. I am encouraging it. I think at a very basic level, it's just trying to think of areas where it can help. We are in the middle of a billing system implementation, and one of the team members is going to do, a data dump download from her head to another colleague and write up all the points. And we all agreed, okay, just record it and then put it into ChatGPT and get the basics, and you can just work on that. And that's it. You all know how painful it is to write those notes, to tweak them. And it's the thing that you put off till the last day that you have to get it done. And if we can have a system do that, that's marvelous.
We always like to ask finance leaders for a finance strategic moment, which is really just a memory that they can pull out from back in time that revealed to them, the sort of the strategic role that finance does play. What comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment? So
I have two, if you'll indulge me. One, very quickly, I think the importance of the back office is often forgotten about. Particularly in high growth companies where there's a really exciting product, and then there's the buzzkills in the back office that, need numbers and need specificity. and getting that right and investing in that team and making them part of bringing them upstream, making them part of the decisions early in the game can really be a game changer. And having that team feel empowered and part of the value proposition means that you have a team that is prepared, is well invested, well remunerated, and that can make or break deals, particularly for high growth venture and private equity backed companies. If you have a private equity that comes in and your books are not in order and your team, isn't incentivized or bothered about preparing that and making that deal work, that's a really, that can be an actual deal killer. So that is my one. And then
that's great.
My big one is getting the deal done. Well, not a big one, but the big aha strategic moment for me was really after a bunch of organic and inorganic growth at WeddingWire and TKWW post the XO integration. I had a team of 65 people located across 3 continents, kind of centralized in the DC area, in Barcelona, Spain, and in New Delhi in India. And great teams, great people, did great work, but were very siloed. And I was really the connective tissue between each team. And, they all laddered up to me, and it was not a scalable or sustainable model, because if I left, the person stepping into those shoes would have had a really hard time getting up to speed. So we took the decision to, merge the 3 teams and make one global team. And, what I mean by that is, for example, for revenue, we had in the 3 teams, you had people doing revenue for various countries, and they weren't doing anything else other than that. So what we did was we had 1 person or 2 people do revenue for all the global entities. And, so on and so forth throughout all of our processes, all of our accounts payable, payroll was managed by a centralized group. And, but it wasn't centralized in the US or one of the other countries. It was really, truly, you had managers in India who were managing people in the US and vice versa, and the mix as well. And it was a really painful year, that transition, and figuring out, what everybody did and how to make sure that, the person in the US knew what the India revenue recognition regulations were, and in Spain and in the UK and Ireland. But when we got to the end of it, the unlock for the team was amazing. It was, our employee satisfaction numbers that had really been lagging went through the roof. Our attrition disappeared, basically. We had people who were motivated. They were on a global team. It was like, the person sitting in Barcelona, Spain had 64 global colleagues, not their team in Spain. And they were getting international experience, international exposure, seeing different work methods, different ways of thinking. And you were closing faster. People were happier. They were growing. They wanted more. They really got motivated. So it was just an overall win on every level, which I think when you allow people the empowerment and tell them what the objective is and request excellence and give them the tools to achieve that, it really is, it sounds super cheesy, but the possibilities are endless.
Can I ask, have you ever looked back in time at how many different acquisitions you touched during your career on the way up? How many there might have been?
Oh my goodness. Big ones? Like 5?
Big and small, I was thinking.
Yeah, probably big and small, probably about 12.
Yeah. And what you were just describing, sort of the globalization of the finance function, if you want to characterize it that way, maybe you look at it differently, but that was so necessary for acquisitions as well, right? Wouldn't that have made it much easier then as well? And your finance people would have been much better prepared to tackle what was coming their way, I imagine.
100%. 100%. And that and the quick integration, not leaving things sitting for months, making it happen quickly. It's painful for that month or 6 weeks, but then it's much worse to have it drag out over months and months.
And you shared with us that you were fortunate to have these, you said, I think 3 CFO mentors. I'm wondering what it is that distinguishes mentorship over time. When you look back and you think, wow, I learned the most from this person. Perhaps it wasn't the most enjoyable 2 years, but you know what? I walked away with the most learning. I don't know if that's an experience you had, but I'm saying let's turn some of the lessons upside down for us. What, when you look back, is there something that was rather novel that just you found value in?
That's an interesting question. So I've had the 3 CFO mentors, and then I had an amazing mentor in KPMG US who really took me under her wing when I had kids while I was a senior associate in the firm, studying to get my CPA. It was hard, and I didn't feel I'm particularly doing a good job at any of the things. And she found me very early in the morning in an audit room, and I was just so past it that I laid it all out. It's like, I'm not doing a good job anywhere, at home, at work, nothing. Like, I do. This doesn't work. It can work. You need to figure out a system, and you need to figure out your confidence. And so she was really instrumental, in my success, because I'm not sure I probably would have sunk if it hadn't been for that early morning. But, I think seeing her as a partner who'd had children as a senior associate as well, that was super valuable to me, and her caring to share that and caring enough to ensure for the senior associates to do that to be successful, is really important. But I think, all of the mentors that I've had have all been very successful and very confident and not afraid to share their limelight. That, I think, is a really important thing, that they're not afraid that you'll outshine them or that you'll eat into their competitive advantage. They're comfortable enough in their own skin that they're happy to share and happy to take people along on that journey, which is, I think, the sign of a good person, and then successful professional. Yeah,
excellent. Thank you for that. We always like to ask our guests to reflect on the personal side. You shared a few details with us along the way. Your first relocation. Have you folks stayed in the Mid-Atlantic region of the States then, or no desire to go move to Asia or Australia, or are you with family members? Perhaps you've got a home base now.
We do have a home base. I get itchy feet every few years, but we are in the DC area, and we have 3 children, and it's a great place to bring up kids. It's a nice childhood that we can provide here, and it's a fun city, and it's good international vibe. So I think we're here for at least the next 10 years. So the youngest goes to college.
Wondering, along the way, was there a resource or a book or something that you believe has served you well, or influenced your thinking? I don't know. Or sometimes I always say, maybe there's a book you like to escape with, something that reveals something to us about you, something about you to us.
So my guilty pleasure is thrillers. The more stressed and busy I am, the more I'll just tear through thrillers at night and the weekend. But I think one of the books I've read in the last couple of years that has been really impactful and resonated with me is Radical Candor. And just sharing how feedback is a gift. As we're working with people that we care about, it's sometimes hard to be honest and tell the hard stories. Sometimes it's not, sometimes they're not doing great and they need to pivot and change things. And that's really, it's hard to be on the receiving end of that, but it's almost harder to give it because it's tough. And this book really helps, flip that to it is a gift and they need to hear it. And it's better to hear it from someone who cares and wants to help them in a safe space to change that and do better. So I really do push myself to provide as constructive feedback as I can. Because promotion should never be a surprise. The lack of a promotion should never be a surprise. And I feel very fortunate to have benefited from solid, constructive feedback in my career.
Yes. That's wonderful. I haven't heard that on the podcast before. Not a promotion, should not be a surprise. And it's well said. It's that person just was not aware that they weren't performing or didn't get the skills that they require to take that next leap. So we are up to our final question. And we're going to ask you to look forward finally. And what we want you to, and again, you're new in the role here, so there's a lot you've got to do this first 12 months, we imagine. But tell us, what are your priorities over this coming 12 months? What would those be?
Lots of things. For me, it really is setting the stage for future growth, making sure that our data is clean, that our processes are clear and repeatable, that we are set to scale in such a way that we can provide the data, we can provide the support to the business, and that we know exactly what's happening. So I think it really is data, systems, processes, talent. So those four in no necessary order of priority, but those four things are just key to our success right now.
Emma Whelan, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.